Hi everyone. So we're busy with part two now. If you're still stuck on part one, or if there's anything unclear or anything that you need to recap or you missed the previous session, please follow the link for part one to catch up. This is one of the coolest POEs as I've mentioned before, and it really is because it's simplistic and I'm trying to simplify what you need to do so that you can do it comfortably without the stress or the anxiety about what it is that you need to do. So if you follow the guidelines, you follow the POE guides and tips that I've given you, you should be fine. So in our previous video, we covered essay part one, which covered an essay and also a PowerPoint presentation. So I repeat here, if you're unclear what you need to do, please revisit the previous link. So for this one, we're going to focus on part two. And for part two, we are using tools to create a mural. And we're also focusing on parts of the lesson plan. So part two's main focus is to use sources in intermediate phase social sciences. And this one is for about 50 marks, so you have to pay careful attention. Part two is split into two sections. So we're going to focus on the first part first, and we call this 2.1. So 2.1, I'm discussing it in two steps so that you know you have to double check if you've done both step one and two. So for 2.1, step one is you have to research the history of the area or province in which you live. Now, some of you are not living at home, you're living at res, so think about the province where you are from, or if the province where the residence is in is more, it's got a lot more tools and insights or interesting things you'd like to share, then you're more than welcome to choose that one as well. Then you're going to choose at least 5 interesting facts about that province that is linked to social sciences and possibly relatable for grade 4. You're going to select graphics, and by graphics we mean pictures that you find when you're searching for stuff, as we've discussed in class, and you will reference them accordingly, as we've discussed in the previous video. Or you can draw them physically yourself if you are good at drawing. Then, after you've selected your images, you're going to write a short caption for each image, and you're going to then design your mural. Step 2 then requires you to use an MS Word document to write a brief explanation of each of the facts that you have chosen to represent in your mural. So now you're going to write a paragraph basically explaining what you wanted to depict in your mural. Remember your paragraph, this is an academic write up, so it will have references in text, and we all know what that means. If there's in text references, then they need to be listed in a reference list alphabetically at the end of your submission. So at the end of the Word document or the last page of this Word document, you're going to have a reference list. You're going to keep the text and the images simple, and you're going to include a link to the online drawing of your mural in the Word document. So it could be at the start of the page, below your heading. You can start with your write-up and then your link, or your link could be right at the top before your paragraph. It's up to you. But ideally, what's most important is that that link needs to work. So if you click on the link, or if I click on it to mark your work, I should be able to access. It should take me to a Canva document. I think you've all seen when you create something on Canva and you want to share it, there is a share with public link that you can share. Please be careful of private settings that don't allow the external viewer to see it. Be careful of those limitations. It's going to block me from marking it, which ultimately will mean that you are at risk then of failing that particular task. So test your link with your neighbor, send it to a colleague, a peer in class, and let's see if it works before you submit, please. So when we have a final touch point on Friday, we're going to go over this and try putting a mural together and share the link so we can see how that works out. But ideally, we're going to ensure that you are able to complete this at the end of our touch point. That then covers task 2.2. Task 2.1 then, we are now on page 8 of your PoE document. This is embedded with the work that we've already done. So I put Throwback Thursday there because we did discuss food and farming, and we did discuss the assessment component of this in our lecture. So if you can reflect back, um, ideally use your textbooks as sources to help you, you should be fine. So what task 2.2 is asking, and this one is for 20 marks, that you refer to CAPS and select any theme under the topic food and farming. So you can find appropriate sources for your topic again, and you're going to explain why you selected um, these particular topics again. But mainly, the idea here is to include what you find for the sources here and use it to speak towards assessment. But again, any sources that you incorporate has to be referenced correctly. So think about assessment discussions in class and think about the following. For step 2, you make use of the teaching and learning phase of the lesson plan only. Now they've given you a table that you're going to fill in, so you don't have to go and complete the lesson plan for the IIE that we normally give you. For this one, you're just filling in the table. So on page 8, there's a table provided for you, and you're going to complete column B in the table. But what's important here, and the two key things that you need to understand, you're going to describe how you will use the selected sources in the activity to ensure an immersive, learner centered approach. Think about what we said. What makes it a learner centered approach? How do you know a teacher is using a learner centered approach? Think about our lectures, think about the slides that cover that topic, and think about how in class, what did I try to do with you throughout the lectures? What did I do? How did you experience the social science lectures? The clue is in that. What does immersive mean? What did I try to make you do every single time I saw you? Then the second thing that's important for you to note is to include a short assessment of learning activity, using those sources or reflecting on those sources to meet the lesson objectives at the end. So for every teaching and learning phase, there needed to be lesson objectives that unpack it. So if you know what lesson objectives you wanted to teach, you can then create assessments that discuss that. The hint here is that you can also include a memo or a rubric at the end to answer or show what the learners needed to do right to get the full marks for that particular assessment. But in order for you to cover step 2, you need to know what assessment of learning is. And so here you can reflect back again. I'm defining it for you on the slide that I'm not going to go over to define now. But the idea is that you're going to define assessment of learning, use your teacher's guide to help you so that you've got a source that you can reference, and then ultimately incorporate that to design, to complete the lesson plan table on page 8, but also to choose the resources smarter so that you can understand what exactly you need to choose. You'll see on page 8 it says, find an appropriate source related to food and farming. Then it says, state whether it's a primary, secondary, or tertiary source. So here I wanted to pause and just inform you that primary means that the primary source is the author, the original author of a specific topic or information that you found. But if that source is used by someone else and they speak about it and then you use it, it becomes a secondary source. And if that source has been used by multiple other people, it becomes a tertiary source. So the idea is to consider using primary sources, which is from the main author, or secondary sources, which means it's been spoken of by one other author, and limit it to that just for clarity and for your understanding. If you use your textbook, that's a primary source. If you use your CAPS document, it's a primary source. Now, if you're using other articles that are extra or additional sources, consider checking if they are speaking of work that's been done by someone else. If they have, it might fall in a primary or tertiary category. The next bullet that's important, it says, explain why you selected this particular source, reference it correctly, and then include the source in your learning activity. Designing the activity, using the teaching and learning phase lesson plan. So remember, you're using the table that's given to you, because you're going to describe in that table how you will use the source in the activity to ensure an immersive learning experience or learner centered approach. And then you're going to include a short assessment of learning activity. And those are included in the table. So you use the table to complete it. If you do that, then you should be fine and you should make your way to the 20%, the 20 marks for this particular activity. And that's the end of your PoE. So ideally, what I'm going to do is, even if I don't lecture you, I'm going to put the resources and tools onto this YouTube channel that you can always use. So feel free to learn about new applications, come and find out how you can do research, how you can write academically well. Check it out and see what cool insights you can gain on your journey. So even if I don't lecture you second semester, I will still give you insights that I think would be useful for you and your academic journey moving forward. So don't be shy. You can click subscribe, you can follow, you can like. I would appreciate that. But I want to wish you all the best for your PoE, as well as for the awesome and cool classes that we've had in the semester and the amazing teachers that you're going to be. I wish you well, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for my 85% that we are marking for. All the best, and you know how to reach me if you need me. Goodbye.